So I started off 2022 with a rookie mistake in terms of video. The video I put up that was talking about downtown and being able to support a Westlake style mall, the sound quality was way off as well as everything else. And so basically with the sound issue, I have several different ways that I can record sound. One is the default way, and it sucks. That's what you guys heard. And it's basically the default microphone in the computer. It's not good whatsoever. It's horrible, as you can tell. The other is I can basically record sound through a software and then also connect it through to the computer. It's still not good. Third way would be through this camera that I'm using right here, and it's decent, but not the best. And then the best way is through this microphone, this external microphone that I have that's a high definition and all of that. It's the best, but for some reason, this program was defaulted to the default. So it actually, instead of staying on this particular microphone, I had forgotten because I hadn't done videos in a bit. And yeah, it picked up the horrible sound. So I apologize for that. Not the best way to start off 2022, but 2022 is going to be a great year. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. 2022 is going to be a great year for me personally, I feel, and with our family. And I know that 2022 is going to be great for Tacoma. In the previous video, I talked about how Tacoma could support downtown a Westlake style mall. Something that's in the neighborhood of about 20 stores with a couple, 2 or 3 anchor stores, right? If you look at Westlake, it has Nordstrom Rack as an anchor, it has Zara as an anchor, and it has something else, basically Saks Fifth Avenue on as an anchor as well. And it has other little stores in there. And I had mentioned that based on, documents and on paper, obviously downtown Tacoma could support that, and a developer would be smart in terms of building something like that, just given the current climate of everything, right? When you look at everything on paper, the amount of incomes that people have, which is stronger than, if you look at our GDP and you look at everything in terms of what people make, pretty much on all the income brackets, Tacoma beats Spokane, right? So financially, and we have more people who live downtown. Financially, we have more people who live in downtown Tacoma than downtown Spokane. So yes, downtown could easily support a mall downtown, right? Especially when you just look at just everything. But it would not be a sprawling mall. It wouldn't even be a mall similar to what you see in downtown Spokane. It would be more like a Westlake in Seattle, where you have less stores overall, but emphasis on the food court as well as these other anchor stores. It would do well, especially at Nordstrom Rack, right? It does. The current one does amazing. So it's just getting a developer to do that. And before, I was kind of pessimistic about developers doing anything because it seems like they're not really wanting to step outside the box. However, a lot of things have changed, and a lot of these are out-of-state developers, right? They're coming in, doing some things, and they're changing the way that we look at things. And then you have those from Seattle. Developers from Seattle build with that same mindset of Seattle. And that means that they're going to put stuff in the development. It's not just a building with apartments and then you have retail at the bottom because you're required to and it's empty. Those won't fill anytime soon, and everyone knows that. You're just adding to the retail component, but you're not actively seeking out retailers. That would be the smart thing to do, is either fill them in yourself or seek out businesses that can come in and fill those spaces. It does several things. One, it guarantees you income for several years, and for two, it keeps that space from being vacant which at the end hurts the city, and at the end it hurts the building that they're building, right? Doesn't make any sense. But today we're talking about the whole conversion aspect and how there are several projects in the city, and I'm only listing a few that are actually going through conversion process. So the first one, and I'm going to share this with you so you guys can see it, and yes, I did it on Word, and no, it's not going to look the best, but it's fine. We're going to talk about this particular building here in downtown Tacoma. It's a 16-story office building, and let me say this. These images come from various different sources, right? Empress, they come from the not Indy Star, that's a different thing. The Tacoma News Tribune, they're coming from, what else is there? I don't know. There's a lot of different ones, right? Chamber of Commerce, there's a lot of different places I'm getting the images from. So don't pass out and freak out. Some people freak out over images and stuff like that whenever you're just doing a simple little basic thing. Most of the time, no, but I had one business here that freaked out over images and everything else, and it was really ridiculous. But, so I completely just eliminated the video because this is the source of advertising, right? So I'm actually, while talking about this, it's a source of advertisement. If people are smart, they understand like bloggers really do help. Newspapers help too, but newspapers are typically skewed, and a lot of people don't really pay much attention to newspapers. They pay more attention to bloggers and vloggers because we're going to give you our honest opinion. No one's paying me to bend in a certain angle, right? So smart people realize, like, yeah, there may be some things I don't necessarily like, but I can definitely refute those things in the comment section. But some people don't. So I had that one business, I'm not going to mention who, that was kind of rude. And what I did was just completely remove the video. Therefore, I have a lot of people who pass by. I don't have a huge subscriber base, but I have a lot of people that watch videos and they never subscribe. Most of what I produce are people who do what I call drive-by. They pick up a video, they're like, oh, cool, this is interesting, and then they move on. That's probably 80-90% of what happens with this channel. So why would I want to help advertise a business that's just already showing their excessive rudeness, right? Typically with big companies like these, that never ever happens, right? And actually, out of all the years I've done it, this was the first time. So I don't support those types of businesses. But these projects I'm excited about. There is one at the very, very bottom that I'm super excited about. Hopefully all these businesses are not jerk businesses, right? But anyway, most of them, I think all of them are pretty good. Again, a lot of the big companies, they got too much on their plate to really care. And honesty is honesty. My opinion is my opinion. Just like I tell everyone, you have your opinion. Some people hate Tacoma. Some people love Tacoma. Some people hate Seattle. Some people love Seattle. Some people hate Florida. Some people love Florida, right? So people's opinions are their opinions, and that's their own right to have, not for someone else to try to control. But getting back to this. So Spokane, a developer from Spokane called Interurban, entered into the city. Now, this was a couple of days ago when this project was listed, right? This is not the newest, but it was the newest up until a certain, what was it? This was mentioned at the end of last year, right? Because today is what, the 4th? January 4th? So there was one that was just mentioned a couple of days ago after the new year. So a lot of things are happening quickly, but this is a 16-story building. It's 109 years old. It's being converted from office to residential by Spokane-based Interurban. They're going to spend about $4 million to convert this building out, starting work now in January, and they're going to put in 60 units with no parking. Now, let's take a look at this. This building, if you look at it, it looks like it's all of this. I don't know if they bought this portion, and that's what they're speaking about, which I think it is, even though all of this is attached. I believe And this is why I have this image here, is because I believe it's just this portion only, right? I believe. Now, you may think 60 apartments not a big deal, but it is a big deal. A, we don't know the size currently. We don't know if those are going to be micro units, one bedroom, two, three, or a mix. We don't know. The other thing is if I look at 60 residences, I typically double that because typically people will have either a roommate or a partner or something like that. Not always, but typically. So even if it's a one bedroom and there's 60 units, I always say 120. It could be more, it could be less, typically will be. And one of the key focuses is that this is with no parking. Now, these pictures, I'm going to go back and forth because I want you to notice a trend here, okay? So this is a really unique project. A lot of these buildings, downtown office buildings like this, have no more functional use. In fact, this building, I believe, is just empty. There's no more functional use as far as an office goes. Because nowadays you have, and I'll show you at the very end, a building that's completely okay and what typically companies go for. But when they're 109 years old versus 30 or 40 years old, it's a completely different thing. These old buildings have a lot of weird angles. There were old technology that they had that took up space, and it's strange. So trying to revert this or to make this a gleaming office building is kind of a waste of time, and especially in an area where the office market for these old buildings, you could convert this building into a modern office building on the inside, but I think this company is focusing on historic properties, which is what they typically focus on. And with this being a city that needs a lot of residential, this makes a lot of sense. Now, it would be great, I don't know what they're doing with the bottom, it would be great if there was some sort of retail project that would go into the bottom of this, right? And something that they bring with them, not just create a retail hole and just say, well, eventually nature will take over and something will fill it, but literally bring something to it. That would be great. The 60 units, no parking. This is something that's kind of typical, right? In downtown, you don't have to provide parking, and more than likely people will either have to park on the street or this company may work with a company that has a parking garage downtown. There's a lot of parking, but it belongs to different businesses. And some of those parking garages are empty. They belong to different entities. So that's part of it. But a building like this is never going to attract, as an office building, is never going to attract like Microsoft or Facebook or Amazon. You're never going to get that. If anything, this would be perfect for things like co-working, stuff like that. It doesn't seem like it's a very big building if we're just focusing on this portion alone. It's not very wide. You're not going to get that. This building back in the day was one thing, and it could have been this was all of it at one time, and maybe the owner cut this part off and said, this is I have no idea. I don't know a whole lot about the building, but I do believe, I think it was a Scandinavian bank at one point back in the day when it was originally built. I'm not for certain. But I really like this building because of the steeple top. And it's one of the very few that have that in downtown Tacoma. The next one is a locally based company here in Tacoma that's working on the old city hall. Now this one, seismic work has been done on this project, and they're thinking that possibly can be completed in 2024. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. The old city hall is a local landmark, so this company is putting $14.5 million into redeveloping it. Many different uses, from restaurants and co-working spaces and all of that type of stuff. I don't know exactly everything that's planned because they change things in this once. So I don't know exactly everything that's going into it. I do know that the clock tower was supposed to be functional and ring in 2022, but of course COVID pushed every construction project in the entire country behind, so that hasn't happened, and that also has affected the construction, I'm sure, with this project, as well as some of these others that have been in the works for a bit. And the one I'm going to next is going to kind of talk about that. So with this one, not really sure of all the details of it, but, or even if it will even be done by 2024, we'll see. We'll see what happens. This building here is the old Washington Bank building, and I have talked about this project before. This is one that's been worked on for a very long time. Seattle-based Unico bought this bank building out, and they were working on the outside facade of the building, fixing any sort of cracks or whatever. They were fixing stuff on the outside, and the bottom of this at one point in time was a nightclub. That nightclub moved because essentially it was bought out, and so the company wanted them to move. And what's sad about this building is that at one point in time, back in 1925 when it was built, this was the second tallest building in the Pacific Northwest. The only other building that was taller was up in Seattle, and it was Smith Tower. So it was a very, if you look at all of these buildings, they're all very old buildings. Back in the day, even in the, because again, this building here was built in the 1800s, 18 something. The old City Hall was built in 18 something. Basically, this was supposed to be the big city of Washington, right? And in fact, it kind of was. And then later that went to Seattle. And it was all due to the railroad and stuff like that. But yeah, we had a lot of big, tall buildings like this. And this one's 18 stories tall. And they're trying to convert it from office into 150 residential units. Again, I'm not sure what that blend is. I do know at the bottom, the bank vault and all of that, they're going to use it for residential purposes. So it's going to be stuff for people that live there, different types of lounges and things like that. I really think that kind of misses the mark, in my opinion, because, again, it's better than just leaving nothing down there like a lot of folks are doing when they're building a new project. But again, I think that there's more that you can do to bring that building alive. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of companies are thinking about building and selling it. They're not really in it for the long term. And that is kind of what you can see the difference. You can see the difference in a company, a developer that's in it for the long term versus those that just build stuff and move on. So I'm not sure about the case here, but it would have been great if that would have been more, the bottom could have been used more for society. A restaurant, something like that. I mean, obviously, since it's residential, you can't have a nightclub again. But even a small department store would have been great. You know, these developers have a lot of pull. So if they could have gotten something like that down there, it would have made the value of the building even more, right? It would have actually improved it quite a bit. And you're getting that excess rent. But we'll see. I mean, it's been taking a while for this project to get completed, and they've been working on it for a couple of years. So we'll see. This is the one that I'm super excited about. Very excited about this. This is the newest one that was actually entered into the news. And this is the type of project that we need more of. Now, this building is an office building, and unlike these others where this is going to be converted into residential, this is an office building that's going to be converted into some restaurant spaces, co-working, and other stuff. This building here is an office building that's going to be converted into residential. This building's not going to be converted into any of that. It's going to stay an office building. This is about 200,000 square feet. This is a prime building for what Amazon and Microsoft and Facebook look for. A building of this size would be perfect. The problem is that this building, and similar to in State Farm, all of those are Class A office buildings. They can easily land those types of companies, but they're outdated. This building was built back in the 80s, and a company out of Kirkland, Seattle, MJR Development out of Kirkland bought this office building for $41 million. It was built back in the 80s, and they plan on keeping this building an office building that has about 200,000 square feet, with 60% of that being occupied by tenants. So you have a little under 100,000 square feet that's available. The reason why that this company jumped on this is because they're betting on Tacoma's young population. We have been in the news as being a big attractor for the Gen Z as well as millennials. A lot of those folks are calling Tacoma home. A lot of the Gen Z, we're talking to people in their early 20s. They consider Tacoma a great place to live. It's a lot more affordable than Seattle or Bellevue or any other place. And the fact that it has a university downtown definitely does help, whether you go to college or not. Having that youthful population down there, young people want to be in company of other young people. And so it's great. Being that everything's a lot more affordable here, including office space, retail space, housing. This company thinks that a satellite office will move here. They're not alone in that thought. And in fact, when I was talking about the mall, there is this view that a satellite company or two, a satellite office means that my big main headquarters is someplace else, but I will put a division or something like that in a different city, right? So that's kind of what they're thinking. Now, REI has been putting satellite operations in different places. They've abandoned the whole concept of having a headquarters in one particular area. But they have more of these regional offices. They've done it over, I think, in Linwood or Issaquah. I think it's Issaquah. And they have one, I believe, in Seattle. And I think that they're looking for something in the South Sound, some believe here. This would provide the square footage probably that REI is looking for, which is close to that 100,000 square feet. It's enough for them to put a couple of hundred employees here. Now, this is a modern office building, but there are some things that can be updated. I mean, obviously, if you look at things from the 80s, it's not bad, but I mean, you can improve it. And they think that this will help bring this, put a whole new fresh spin on this entire building. But they're also doing something that is very smart and that's extremely rare in terms of redevelopments and in terms of new builds. This is why I talked about the whole Trent development. Trent development, they're building right now. There's a live cam, but they're building a two-building structure downtown. It is a mid-rise apartment building, but they're putting in all types of amenities for the community, for the building, right? So some of those are going to be a top-notch swing suite, but they're also going to think about having a co-working space down below that's available for not only people that live in the building, but also for the community at large. So they're not just having a big vacant retail hole, they're actually putting in various different amenities down below. That's a smart thing to do. This particular developer is doing the exact same thing because now they're saying, why just focus on money I'm making inside the building? I need to get money from every different type of, all different types of revenue streams, which is smart. I mean, that's the way that you do it. You know what I mean? Like the same thing with the tract development over there in close to the Freight House Square in the Dome District. They're doing the same thing. They're putting in a two-story farmer's market. Why? Because you're bringing in money from people who, and it's 24 hour, not 24 hour, but it's a, uh, year-long market. It never, there's not a month that it closes down. It's not a temporary thing. It's everyday farmer's market. You're bringing in a lot of different revenue streams. You're bringing a lot of different people who come in to spend money, and you create a destination point. It's just smart, right? It's very smart. And they're wanting people to come there to eat. Very smart. This developer also understands this because they also went to Lacey, Washington. I have someone in the Discord, and again, make sure that you join the Discord, which is down in the description box below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Again, this year is going to be a lot of talk about development. But we have someone that lives down in Lacey who moved down there recently. This company here bought a project in Lacey. Let me pull it up. Hold on one second. Okay, so I have it pulled up here. And I assume that this is going to be a great company. And I say this because it seems like that their head's in the right direction. And when there's a company that's like that, I don't have a problem with helping them. Brewery Blocks has even thanked me before. They were like, thank you for doing a piece on us. Because my whole point is being a a YouTuber, I guess you can call me that, but being on YouTube, I'll say, is to give people the information. People want that, right? They want to know what's going on out there. What's your honest opinion? What's your honest take? Not just kissing butt, right? But with this particular company, they went to Lacey and they took over a space. You can watch the video that talks more about this. I'll include a link below that has the YouTube video of this and what they did in Lacey. They have projects all over, but in particular Lacey. The reason why we're talking about Lacey, Washington is based on what this company did in the restaurant that they're talking about. In Lacey, they took a space that was kind of forgotten, and they basically bought this area, this building out, and it has office buildings, but it also has a detached restaurant someplace else, a space for that, which is available. But they also took this building and they turned it into what's called the Hub at Lacey. And when you look at it, it's really cool, right? It's like, okay, nice. They took this big area and they converted it. And you can go on there and you can see the campus map and it talks about what they did. To give you an idea, the Hub at Lacey, I believe, is all of this. So this is not some small thing. They took all of this. And I believe they're, and this kind of is an image of the building. You can kind of see it here. But a little over 550,000 square feet. What's important is this right here, Ricardo's. Okay? Now, when you go to Ricardo's restaurant, and let me go back here for a sec. This building here is going to have, and this is what they mentioned, a, where was it? Oh, they want to add a restaurant, wine bar, tap room, meeting spaces, and a gym. Now, remember, I did a video saying one of the things that Tacoma really, really needs is a wine bar. Because when you do a lot of different events, you know, Noelle has been in towns where she goes and she does events and things like that. And she has to go for work. And wine bars are great because if you meet people at an event, you can easily go to the wine bar and just have a couple of drinks, especially a lot of times women who are professionals. That's something that they really like to do. Not all, but I mean, generally through work conversations, things like that, is kind of what folks like to do. Go and just wind down with some wine, stuff like that. Well, I thought that was great. I'm like, this is amazing. They even show an image. Now, this is from Biz Journal. This is their image. This is basically the Ricardo's Wine Bar in Lacey. Okay, so looking at this, I said, yes, this is what we need. I don't know how big it is, but even just what you see in this image, that's fine. We just need a wine bar of some sort. So this is perfect, right? And I also noticed back in here, well, once I went through and watched the video, which is going to be in the link below, I realized that the restaurant is back here, and then this is the wine bar. So let's go back to this particular image here. Make this bigger over here. I think that this company should do all of the things that they mentioned. One, obviously, meeting spaces. A building like this with offices, you're going to need a meeting space. They could take some of the square footage they have and easily make some meeting spaces, obviously. I think that the gym, yes. There is not a gym downtown for just everybody. There is a gym at UW. Now, someone probably will correct me because I could be completely wrong on this. But I do know that there is a gym, you know, a place where you can actually work out and stuff like that. But it is for students and staff at UWT and faculty, I believe. It's not for the general public. I don't think that we have a gym downtown. It'd be great if we had like a Planet Fitness or something like that. We just don't. So having something like that, if it's available to I don't know if they're going to have it just available to people in the building or to the general public. If it's for the general public, that'd be great too, right? The tap room. I think that's great too because, and hopefully these three things I mentioned, the meeting room, gym, and a tap room are all three separate things, obviously. But the tap room's great because most of what you see is over in the brewery district. This is kind of more internal. And having a tap room more internal, more in the core of the city is great because you're surrounded by a bunch of offices. I'm going to go into, mentioned earlier, all these buildings have something very close in common, but we'll talk about that in a second. But having a tap room, I think, is going to be a smart thing to do. Again, you don't need a lot of space for this, right? You can take a 1,500 square foot space and turn it into a tap room. It'll be perfectly fine. You can take a wine bar. You don't need a lot of square footage for that. Again, another 1,200, 1,500 square feet, and you're in the house. The restaurant, if it is Ricardo's or something like that, yes. So yes to the restaurant, yes to the wine bar. I think the restaurant and the wine bar, they can be attached, but they should also be able to have separate entrances because some people may not be interested in going to the restaurant. They just want to simply have a wine bar experience where they can just sit and chill at the wine bar. And some people want the restaurant experience, right? But people who want wine and they want to go to the wine bar may not want to have interactions with kids. I have kids, I understand. But maybe they just want to be able to have a chill, relaxed relationship, have a couple of drinks, and they don't want to have to deal with kids. So I think having both, but separate entrances and still attached, I think is smart. And having a steak restaurant like Ricardo's, yes. Now, when you go to Ricardo's, and I'm going to go here with you, I've already looked at it and seen it. But when you go to Ricardo's, it says it's the premier steak destination. Hopefully they're not going to get butthurt by me using their website. I mean, it's something anyone can find. If anyone can find it, people shouldn't be all butthurt about it. But anyway, so this is kind of what they advertise, and this is their logo, right? Really, really nice. This is something that we need in downtown Tacoma, period. We need something like this. Having something like this on the outside of that building where people can walk in, again, let's say this is the restaurant portion, you walk in here, you know, you chill. Over here is your wine portion. I have no idea. You know, I've never been here, but let's just say in Tacoma's sake, you can go into this door and then it's basically the wine bar. Home run, in my opinion. Home run. But let's go to what I had mentioned before. These buildings all have something in common. Let's go back up here to the very tippy top. This building right here that's going to be office, or actually going from office to residential, look at this building right here. Notice this building right here? That building right there is this building. They're literally just right down the street from one another. When you add these two together, again, even with this one, 150 residential units, I doubled that. So 300 units, let's say, or 300 people, plus another 120, 420 people, roughly, maybe more, maybe less, who could be between just these two buildings alone, right in downtown. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but 420 people is a pretty big deal. It may be greater than that. It may be less than that, but it gives you kind of an idea. This building right here, if you notice, the tallest building in the city is right here. This is the tallest building. Now, let's go back up to this. That building is right here and right here, right? So the tallest building is right here, right next to this one, which is also not far from this. They kind of form like an L shape. So again, tallest building's right there. This Tacoma Financial Center is right here. And so it's right about here. Tallest buildings right here. You have this residential building. You have this residential building. All of them kind of form an L in a very tight spot. The reason why I said, and because these are going through and they're doing their whole thing, it's not a whole new build. I don't know what laws or regulations they have to follow. It could be that straight floating market rate and that there's no affordability. I don't know. I don't know the parking situation for all of these items. I pretty much think that there's none. They don't have to provide it either. So when you think about that, this building here, unless it's somewhere and I don't see it, it could be that they do have parking or that they're working with a company. And this building here, there's no parking. And they're adding residential space. Then when you look at the amount of people that are going to be down there, and this is at floating at market rate, it could be at any price. Do I think that this particular building can support a Ricardo's as well as a wine bar? Yes. Along with all the other restaurants that are coming here? Yes. Someone had asked me before, the reason why I wanted to mention these, do you think that we're going through the same situation that Seattle did, where that they overbuilt the amount of restaurants? And even Noel asked me last night, do you think that this is, can we support it? And the answer is yes. I think that we can. I don't think that we're at that point of where there's too much. Now, I want you to understand something. Not far from here is Kelly's Olympian, which is a business out of Portland, which will be it's got more of a motorcycle theme. Pretty cool building. It's going to have live music, and it's going to also have its own restaurant in it. And also 13 Coins is wanting to come to Tacoma. More than likely downtown would make the most perfect sense. But they're wanting to come here as well. They just don't know what location. Do I think that we can support all of those? Yes. When I look at these 13 Coins, Stanford, as well as Ricardo's, their prices are going to be all different. They're going to be much more than what a lot of people from UW students will be able to afford. But it's definitely within the range of what we can afford for people who live in downtown and work downtown or live in the city or even outside the city. We have a lot of people who come into downtown to work. Some of them leave and go up to Seattle. So we do have that, where people work down here and live up in Seattle. We also have a lot of the opposite, too, where they live down here and work up in Seattle. But do I think that we can support all of these restaurants downtown? Yes. Do I think that we've overbuilt with all of these that are on the planning stages or of coming? No, I don't. Even if we had a mall and they had a food court of 3 or 4 restaurants, I still think we're fine. Why? Because all of these restaurants are at different price points. You have some of these that are at your mall, your typical mall places, and those are much more affordable for students, right? It's totally fine. You also have the middle of the pack type of restaurants too. So you have your Zeke's Pizza, which is downtown. You have your Old Spaghetti Factory, stuff like that. And then you have those that are a little bit more expensive, right? So I think that we have a range, and there's plenty others, right? We have a range of different types of restaurants downtown. It used to not be that way, right? You used to only have maybe one restaurant that was kind of high end, but you have a whole mix. Then you look at McMenamins. There's a whole range of different price points there, right? Typically, most of them are really, really affordable. So Tacoma, when it comes to places to eat, is growing tremendously from where it was. I still think that we can definitely absorb more. Now, what's the number? I don't know. But on paper, it seems completely fine in terms of restaurants. So I don't think that that's an issue whatsoever. I think that when we have an issue like Seattle is when Seattle is adding 20 restaurants at a clip. When you add that many, it's like, yeah, that takes a lot to absorb. And they're building it based on projections and expectations. So you have downtown Seattle with all of its tech might in all those offices. You have a pretty high daytime population of people down there. You have a lot of tourists. You have a lot of people that are just working there, living there. If we're just dealing with the people that live in downtown Seattle, the amount of restaurants that are there, there's too many restaurants for the people, honestly, right? But when you add in the tourists, the cruise industry, the workers, those restaurants can survive. The reason why a lot of them went under is obviously because of COVID restrictions and a bunch of other things, obviously, that come into play. Crime doesn't help down there either. But what you're seeing is that those restaurants that are there cannot support themselves because there's not that huge bloated population that's down there, right? Tacoma, on the other hand, doesn't have those things to contend with. We don't have a huge, robust tourism industry like what Seattle has. You know, people who come here, they kind of come and they kind of go. It's not like we're a destination city like Seattle. So that's different. We don't have all the tech companies that fill up all the offices. In fact, a lot of the offices are similar to this where they're not fully, completely occupied. There's still a good percentage that are not. So you have many office buildings down there. They're not 100% occupied. They may be 60% or 70% or 50% or 40%. And so we're fine, right? As a city, we're fine. We don't have 4 million square feet of office space downtown that's just sitting and hanging out like what you have up in Seattle. So it's different. We don't have that daytime work crowd that Seattle has. So builders here, developers here are putting in things based on the population size. So based on what we're able to support is based on our true population, whereas up in Seattle, it's a lot of that is just kind of projections. We have this much daytime work population, we have this, we have that. It's always crowded and busy. We have a lot of foot traffic. When all those things close down, those businesses also close down. Here, we don't have all of that foot traffic. It's just we're growing organically. So tell me what you think. I do think this would be amazing. I think it would be amazing. I do think, similar to why not developers, but tech companies went to Bellevue. They went to Bellevue for basically, it makes a lot of sense. Low crime. They went there because of the simple fact that it's not super far from downtown Seattle. So they have access to all the tech talent. They're not far from Redmond, which has a lot of tech talent over there too. Excuse me. Ugh. And so it just made the perfect storm. So here we have to work on the crime situation and the homeless situation, which Bellevue didn't have a lot of tents and stuff like that downtown. They didn't have a lot of the homelessness downtown. They addressed the issue as they went. Some would say it's controversial. Some would say that it isn't. But regardless, Tacoma needs to deal with those things so that we can bring in the heavy hitters. When you look at what this company has done down in Lacey, they took a building and now it has a lot of different tenants in it. And they seem to really embrace it. Again, I'm going to include the link of the video, which is from Thurston County's Economic Board, I believe, down in the description box below. You can kind of see what they're talking about. But this particular project for Tacoma, I think, is great. Tell me what you guys think. I mean, they spent $41 million to buy this building, which is insane. So they obviously have the ability to do a lot of different things for it. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think 2022 is going to be super exciting for Tacoma for sure. I mean, when you look at what is being planned, what's being worked on, you know, when we look at the first building here, going back to that, actually, let's just do this. When you look at this particular building here, they're starting work in January. If they finish this year, that would be amazing. This building here, it's years away. This building here, we're not really sure, right? It could be years away also in terms of completing this. But if they were to actually get this completed this year, that would be amazing. And then this particular project here, not sure when they're going to work on it, but it seems like the outside of this building is completely fine. I don't think that there would be need to do any work on that. It's just basically working on this interior portion of the building, probably remodeling a lot of the vacant spaces in there. And again, converting things that they need to convert into what they want, whether it be a restaurant and wine bar or what have you. But it's very interesting to me. I think it's going to be something that is pushing us in towards the direction of what I mentioned in the first video, that we are able to support them all. We just need a developer to do it. And people will say the town center. What about the town center? And as I mentioned in that video, that's great, but I don't think the town center, given the limited retail space that they're choosing to put, and I don't know if they're bringing stores with them, the limited retail space is going to be a concern, I think. But if you actually have a property that has 120,000 square feet and you turn that and make that into a mall, I think that you're in a better position. I also think that projects like this kind of say, look, Seattle, or not Seattle, Tacoma is getting ready for that. There's a lot of people here that may not like the growth that's happening because they see what has happened in Seattle. But I say take a look at what's going on in Bellevue, Redmond, and other places, and in Kirkland, and Issaquah. There's a lot of other great success stories. We don't have to go the pathway of what happened in Seattle. We can go in the direction of some of these other cities, or even Lacey. Look at what's going on there with this particular project. So I think that there's a lot of great out of all of these different concepts that are coming to downtown. There are more, right? And this is not going to be the last one. Buying these old office buildings and fixing them up or converting them completely seems to be the logical step. Remember the town center, whenever that ever gets completed or built, they're going to add 200,000 square feet of offices, and they're going to add the parking. Parking's the big clincher. Getting the parking here is what's going to make the difference, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of parking downtown, but it's companies own the parking. So they may own a building like this that may be attached to a 500 car garage. And maybe they have no cars in it, but they own the building. So that's not available to the public. You have a lot of situations like that. With the town center, I don't know how they're going to really ration out the parking, but 1,000 parking spaces is what's needed downtown. We need to have the parking. We have to have the parking, even if we are a heavily transit-relied city. We still have to have parking for vehicles. And so I think that once we get that component there, everything else will be smooth sailing. So we need to have these components. So everything's happening the way that it should. The parking will eventually come. The office space will eventually come. Projects like what is going on with MJR, I can't say enough great things about it. It's really, really good. Anyhow, tell me what you guys think. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Click on the link that shows the video for what MJR is doing down in Lacey. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.